Right, welcome to the Lonely Carper podcast, episode 14, featuring Matthew Hart. Right, a little warning, this might contain strong language, so you have been warned. A little bit about Matt before we start. He's been carp fishing for over 35 years, and he's fished alongside some incredible anglers and has managed to catch some very special ones. So I'm really looking forward to hearing his journey. So welcome, Matt. It's great to have you on the podcast, mate.
Yeah, hello there, mate. You all right?
Yeah, good. Good, are you?
Good. Yeah, good. Very well.
So, Matt, how did it all start? Your love for carp fishing?
Um, I think how most people start really as a kid, sort of fishing with your dad or fishing with friends at a young age, like school age, fishing for like multi-species, like river fishing, small sort of well-stocked lake fishing, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it just progresses from there. A lot of my friends sort of stopped fishing, and I just seem to continue on. It's quite ironic actually, because your profile is called the Lonely Carper, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, it can be lonely. It can be a lonely old sport, carp fishing, can't it? Certainly, like I've spent a lot of time fishing on my own, as well as fishing on, very, very social waters. But yeah, that's it really.
Yeah, that's how the name came about, really, to be honest, mate. Because obviously everyone's journey is different, whether it's social, whether it's alone. It's a
Mm.
sport where it can really get your heart going, can't it? And sometimes it can be so lonely, on the bank. But I think that's what we love in it. I think we just balance that, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love the socials aspect of the carping, and I've met some really good friends along the way, friends that I'll stay friends with for life. But there's just something about fishing on your own. I do love fishing on my own. I find that I fish better and smarter on my own, and I seem to get better results on my own. But yeah, that's just part of the game, really.
Yeah, yeah. So where did it all start for you then, Matt? What was your first lake you ever targeted then, or?
Um, I think like fishing with friends and stuff. I'll be fishing sort of lakes around the south of England, like sort of these well-stocked lakes, like Wylands and White Vane and places like this as a kid. Um, yeah, just catching like easier type of waters, where you could go there, get a bite, have a bit of fun with your pals, have a few beers, and it's not what I would consider like serious fishing, just more of a social thing, and that's where you start learning and progress from there. But probably the first proper syndicates, probably when I was early 20s, maybe down at Big Lake, something like that, was probably where I really first started out proper, what I would consider proper carp fishing, like syndicate fishing, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was pretty young really. Like, probably 20, 21. Although I'd been carping properly since I was probably 14, 15. But that, like I say, that was more sort of these lakes that are just, you know, easy waters, so to speak. So I moved on to like harder syndicates, probably around the early 20s, and I've done really well. I think there's actually a picture there that I sent you of my first 40, which was a fish that was called the steak, which was 48 pound 4 ounces. That was my first sort of big carp. I had caught like 30s before, but I sort of leapfrog from low 30s straight to a high 40, which was eye opening to say the least. And there's a funny story behind that picture as well. If you actually see that picture, you can see there's a public footpath behind. You can glimpse people walking up the footpath. And of course, I'm sitting there, I'm only young, I've got this massive, whacking, great big mirror. And it was a hard water back then, to be honest. They'd had a big fish kill previously. And I think the lake, I reckon in size, it's probably somewhere around sort of 15, 16 acres as a guide. I think it had about 80, 90 fish in it. It wasn't easy. But yeah, going back to that, there's a public footpath there, and then people were coming down it. So I'm holding the fish. There must have been about 6 or 7 carp anglers around me, all snapping away because it hadn't done many fish recently at all. And the person walking up the footpath went, "Did he just catch that in here?" And the cameraman turned around. He went, "Well, he didn't effing bring it with him, did he?" And he was all rolling around laughing. And that was sort of the first glimpse into proper serious carp fishing. There was some good anglers on that lake at the time, sponsored mainline anglers and stuff. It was it was good. It was a good starting point for me.
Yeah, it's a mega carp, mate. It's a mega one, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a big unit. It was quite hard to lift, to be honest.
Yeah,
I was a lot lighter back then, mate.
Yeah, I can see the footpath now. I can see the footpath now
behind you. You see the people behind. Yeah. That's a fond memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then from there I just progressed on to, different lakes, like carried on doing sort of the day tickety lakes, like there's a complex down in Sussex, not far from Gatwick way, called Furnace Lakes. It's day ticket, but they'd just built a big lake there at the back. I can't remember what the lake was, maybe Plantation Lake or something on the Furnace Syndicate. And, you'd turn up there and there'd be a bailiff and you give him a $5 and he'd take all your kit round to the lake because it was a fair old walk. And I remember I went down there with a mate. He was agging me to fish it, but I had my ticket on Darren at the time and I weren't too bothered. But he said to me, come with me, because he was just bouncing around day tickets. So he twisted my arm and I went there, and I always remember that there was this bailiff drove us down on this golf cart with all our gear, and we was quizzing him about what was in there, and he was saying he's been fishing it really, really hard, and he's after a big common in there that's sort of an upper 40 and blah blah blah. And anyway, we got there, we set up. Well, we didn't set up. We walked round, and I was noticing everyone for some reason was fishing with massive baits, like 18, 20 millers. And I thought, that's a bit strange. Why the hell fishing with big baits? I didn't have big baits with me. I think I had like 12s and 14s. Anyway, I found this. I see some fish, and I found this little swim, and my mate fished next to me, and I put a 10 mil pop up on, and I cast it right tight to an island. And I got this little drop. It was probably in about 6 foot of water, and I thought, oh, that'll do. I didn't even put any bait around that. I think it was early on in the year, and I put another rod out, and we was only doing 24 hours, and I had a mid-30 mirror, and I was like, what a result. And then first light, I had this massive, great big common, and I was like, no. And I weighed it. It was just over 46 pounds. And I can't actually find the picture. My mate gave me the pictures on a DVD years ago, and I can't actually find it. And I've searched for years for that. But anyway, after we went, the bailiff comes to pick you up, and he literally, we loaded our gear on. He said, "Did you have anything, boys?" And I went, "Yeah. I had a mid-30 mirror." He's like, "Oh, that's really good." And I said, "Oh, I had that big common as well." He went, "What?" I said, "I had that big common." He went, "What big common?" "The big common." I went, "Yeah, the big one." He went, how big was it?" I went, 46. And that was it. He went quiet. And he drove us all the way back to the car park, didn't say a word. And I felt so bad. But yeah.
Mad,
so that was that. Yeah, that's it. And that was like the end of pretty much my day ticket fishing, other than like a few trips to Sandhurst and places like that. And then I just, from onwards from then I was just fishing what you would consider like proper circuit waters in the UK. Yeah.
Crazy that though, isn't it? That bailiff has probably been fishing for that car.
He was fishing every night pretty much.
That's what I mean.
Honestly, it was killing him. I think he was fishing every night, and had done for about 6 months. Yeah. For me to just rock up, I mean, it's not catching the carp's not always a fluke, but yeah, catching that individual one would have been very, very lucky on my behalf, But yeah, I think I broke his heart, mate, and I'd
Oh.
never ever ventured back again. It was just a complete freak one off. Yeah,
Hey.
yeah,
So obviously you mentioned there on the day ticket waters, and you touched on Sandhurst.
yeah, yeah.
But did you spend much time on there, mate, or was it just?
No, no, no. That was just kind of like flitting on and off. Yeah, I was concentrating on syndicates at the time, and then I had a ticket for Wingham Carp Lake come through. I don't know if you've ever heard of Wingham, but it's size wise. Well, what could I say size wise? Probably similar size to Darren in that respect. Probably 16, 17 acres as a guide.
Yeah,
Not many fish. I think it only had, I think it had about 70 odd fish max. But it was a southern gravel pit. It's in Canterbury Way. Weed. When I say weed, at points it looks like a football pitch. It's just a joke.
right.
It's just a joke. Very, very difficult water, full of naturals. Literally, we used to use rakes and stuff to try and clear pathways. So
Yeah,
if you hooked one, it was trying to land it. You know, the ratio for hooking and landing was poor. It was like you'd land less than half your bites. It was just very, very difficult in that respect. You could only use a boat for like weeded up fish. Yeah, very, very difficult lake. Literally, I knew people on there that had fished 2 or 3 seasons and never had a carp. I had a few. I had a handful. I only fished it for 1 season, just purely because it was an egg banger. Yeah, met some good anglers on there. Met Terry Dempsey on there. He became a good friend of mine. Fished with him on there, and then I met my mate Eddie. I met a fella called Eddie on there, and we've stayed friends ever since, just like I have with Terry. And I fished quite a lot of lakes after that with Eddie, which I'll probably touch on later in the podcast. But yeah, Wingham, yeah, I had one of the good commons out of there. It's a nighttime shot that I sent it to you. It's a lovely fish, but
yeah.
it was spawned. I think it was about 2 ounces under 40. Spawned out normally a mid to upper 40 at the time. Yeah, that was it really, and that was around the time that I got my lake in France as well. So I've got a
Right.
lake in France. Yeah, so I bought that, and then Johnny Mack was partners with me at the time, so that was like a just an experience making it happen, and sort of making a commercial venue of that. So it was, it was quite exciting times that was back then.
So what made you? Obviously, have you always been interested in owning your own lake, or?
I suppose any carp angler's dream is to have their own bit of water.
Yeah,
Yeah, anyone listening that wants to lake, bear in mind the pitfalls, and it's never ever as straightforward as you think. Livestock is comes with its issues.
yeah,
Like we had a few issues on there. We lost a few fish to the river with floodings, which we corrected with more adequate fencing and stuff, so that won't happen again. And I've got the stock levels on the lake back to how it was when it was previously stocked. And it's a lovely, lovely lake. It's a stunning lake. The Tangaburnie area, it's called. Yeah, it's got fish in there, probably just under 70 pound, around that mark now, I'd say. But it's got so many big fish in it.
is that the one you just released a video?
Yeah. Me and Jim Shelley was just over there. We did a week. Tough conditions that was. Yeah. But it was good fun. We both come good in the end. We both had I had a 40 and he had a 40, and then he stayed on for a few days because the lake started really switching on, and he had another couple of 40s and quite a few more fish. So yeah, it come good in the end, that trip.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, considering the water was like Baltic, when you stick your hand in it, it's like, oh, that's cold. And the water level had come up 3 foot over the previous weeks, just where the water table of the Seine, and it comes across, the ditches and stuff, and naturally fills. So, yeah, as soon as we turned up, I was like, oh, this is going to be a growler. but we made good of it. So I'm really happy how that happened.
So how long have you had the lake for then, Matt?
About 10 years.
Wow.
About 10 years. Yeah.
Fair play, mate.
Yeah. Yes, it's going all right. Rob Burgess just did a video over there with Carp Fix TV, and we had the ND Tackle crew over there, and they made a really good video. If you've not seen that, I really recommend watching that. There's it's really good video. But that was that.
While we're on the subject, obviously your lake as well, mate. You're also a busy man. Obviously, you've got your own bait as well, haven't you?
Yeah. Got a bait firm that was started last year, just out of passion again. I've rolled bait for myself on and off over the years, and you just can't beat quality bait. Don't get me wrong. You know, we know what carp are like. They eat their own shit, so to speak.
Yeah.
Speak out of turn. But I remember I fished on. I mean, I'll come to it like later on about Wellington Country Park. But when I fished on Wellington Country Park, I remember chatting to Pete Regan. He's an old school angler, Pete Regan. He's quite well known, and he makes his own bait. It's very good bait. And I remember we was chatting about it because I was making bait on and off, and I was showing him bits that I've done, and he was agreeing that it was quality. And then he would say, like, the difference between your standard commercial bait and a real top quality bait is they will not leave that swim until every one of them boilies is mopped up. And that's the difference. It doesn't always guarantee a bite, as we know, that they can get away with it, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But sometimes when, I can relate to it in the sense that sometimes when you see these underwater fishing videos, which are amazing because it gives us an insight into like carp's lives and surroundings and all that, but you do sometimes see the fish coming in, taking bait and then drifting off out. Yeah. And then they might come back again a while after, might not. But like that Pete said to me, he said they'll just move around in the swim, picking off every bit of bait until it's all gone because they just couldn't get enough of it. And, to be fair, his results and the people using his bait on there, it spoke volumes, to be honest. So, my own bait. Yeah, so I started that back end of last year. I was using it on my own. Do you know what? I didn't set out from the offset to do it and sell it. It was more like, right, I'm going to do my own bait and I'm just going to fish with it and just not worry. I've been sponsored by firms over the years. I've been sponsored by like Spotted Fin, Urban Baits, various companies. I probably left one or two out, but it's in the end for me, it wasn't about free bait. I was getting free bait, but it was more about let's produce something that's quality for myself. Yeah. So, and that's kind of what I set out to do, and I did, and I achieved it. And for instance, like that nut bait, it broke me. I mean, I know a lot about bait. I've done it on and off a lot over 30 years. But that nut bait was a bit awkward to get right. It took me a lot of attempts. And to get it exactly how I wanted it. And in the end, I was like, do you know what? It's got a lot of peanut in it. It's got a lot of tiger nut in it. It's got a lot of hydrolyzed nut liquids in it. And in the end, I was just like, do you know what? Just stick another 10% nut in it. Double up the hydro nut liquids. I don't care. It's not about the money. It's about getting it right. And do you know what? It's mental. Since I've been selling it, since like some of the boys that have come on, and I'm not just saying it because they're good anglers, but this has just lifted them in the sense that some of their results now, like for instance, an angler that uses the bait, Scott Geezer Grant, fishing in Essex, good angler, been around the block, been with Nash and all the other firms over the years. He said to me a couple of weeks ago, he said, I've never had a winter like it. I think he's had quite a few 40s, a few 30s since he's been using the bait. And he's just like, like I say, he's like, it's unbelievable. So what I'm saying is, take someone who's got a certain amount of ability, give them a good bait that's better than what they're used to, and they will just fly. And the results, like literally, we can't put all the fish up that we're being sent through. Like, it's just ridiculous. By the end of Jan, I think we'd already had like 9 or 10 40s on the bank in the UK. And like there's hardly anyone using it, mate. There's hardly, like, it's a new company.
Yeah.
It's probably like, I don't know. It's not like it's out there. You know, it's quite small in that respect, but the results are just unbelievable. We just had a group. Rob, he's gone to France with his mates, and Rob Castle, and literally they fish this lake, I think pretty much every year. They do a work party, and they work during the day for the owners. I think he's friends with the owners, and then literally they fish at night. I think he said last year they went out there, I think they had like one fish or something stupid between them in that week.
Yeah.
I think they've just come back. I think they had like 30 odd fish. Like literally 2 PBs, a 57 common. I think there was a mirror around £60 and loads of 40s. It's just gone mad. Yeah, anyway, I won't bleat on about it, but it is good. It's good. I put my heart and soul into it, mate, and it's good.
It's funny you should say that, Matt, because obviously I've just pulled the picture up of Rob, and obviously while Rob's been out there, we've been chatting, and he actually mentioned. And
oh yeah, because you know Rob, didn't you? That's it. Yeah. Of course, he recommended me to you. Yeah.
And he actually mentioned it. He voice recorded me. He said he's never had a year like it. You know, and he kept saying like the only thing different that you can think of is obviously he's never used your bait out there. So maybe you know it goes a long way, doesn't it? So just shows, doesn't it? So fair play, man, fair play. Yeah. So mate, you touched on Wingham. So
Wingham, yeah. So I only did a season on there in the end, because I got offered a ticket on the Essex Manor, a bit more local to me. It's an invite only, so it's not like you can't just go on the list, so to speak. There is no list. It's like you get invited through people, and they'll have a look about what you're all about on Facebook and speak to people. It's one of them, you know. And I'd always wanted to fish there. I'd always seen the pictures of these huge, massive carp, and believe it or not, for a puddle irrigation farm reservoir in Essex, it's got some stunning fish in it. They are special fish, like Averley strain ones, and it's a bit of a free for all on there, mate. Like with regards to bait and stuff, it's not so much rules, and there's not loads of rules on there, which is quite nice. You can do your own thing. I think there's night limit rules, like fishing limit rules, and I think that no braid kind of rules. But other than that, it's a pretty much free for all. But I did what I do. I did about 2.5 seasons on there. You know, you get that crossover between tickets.
Yeah.
You know, when you take a ticket, because you've got to think about the future and all the rest of it. So I did about 2.5 years on there, and loved it. Absolutely loved it. What a special place that was. Met some blinding friends on there. Like, it was a very, very social lake. Like, literally, it will be beer and wine and barbecues, and it sounds bad, but you know, you could be off your rods a little bit, and it's just, you know, you could bait up when you left, no one would say nothing. So it was very relaxed in that sense, but it was very also serious fishing because of what was in the lake, you know.
Yeah.
It had a lot. When I fished it, it had, I think, you're probably somewhere around 25 40s. Bear in mind, it's like, anyone who doesn't know the Essex Manor, it's like a 7-acre lake, so it's not big. It's like a farm irrigation reservoir, so the temperatures will go up and down across the season. Like, and it could be anywhere between like 6 and 8 foot, roughly. That, like, the levels drop, and you're just fishing like reed lines and stuff. It's quite a basic looking lake, and there's a big pump in the middle where they pump the water out. It's not, I wouldn't say it's difficult fishing. Like the actual fishing aspect's really easy. It's just like fishing up to the edge of reeds and trying to find like hard spots. Like it's not snaggy fishing or anything like that, but the lake can be really moody, so to speak. It's like, I think it's been fished by a lot of good anglers over a long period of time, and the fish have seen everything. So it's one of them lakes. But I had a fantastic time on there. I think I had about 740s on there, and I think I took about half the stock in the end. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. Yeah, good times on there, mate. Good times on there.
Just pulled some of your photos up there, Matt. Yeah, it's incredible. Some of the carp there you've got is mega, mate.
I got some good stories from that place. I just remember just the amount of times we used to just go on the piss.
Yeah.
But you're serious fishing as well, and you just met some good people, good barbecues. Yeah, and then I caught one of the fish that I was after the most, a fish called Stella, which is a really well-known fish. Yeah, funny. I know I mentioned it to you earlier when I was voice noting about when we was about this. I had a dog that I've still got the dog. Bless him. He's 16 years old now. Little Staffy. He can't even hear properly, can't see properly, but he's still battling on. But he used to come fishing with me a lot. Fred the Staffy, and of course, like they just get so used to the fishing on a whole, like the bivvy, like what you're doing, casting out. Like if ever I had a fish, he'd always just sit there and watch. He would never like even try and sniff the carp or anything. Like he was so used to me catching carp in and around him. And basically, I was fishing in a swim called the Flat, and I saw some fish go over to my left, and in a swim called the 18. So literally, I grabbed my rods quickly, run down there, flicked them out to where I saw the fish show, put them on the buzzer, run back to get my bivvy, and I'm walking back with it over my head like a parachute, and Fred the dog's just barking, running up and down, spinning around in circles, barking. I'm like, what's the matter with you, you prick dog? Do you know what I mean? What's the matter with you? And he's just doing it. And I'm like, this is not normal. This is not normal behaviour. So I just sort of dropped it and went to sort of see him, like to say, look, what's the matter, Fred? Are you all right? And I could just hear something in the distance, a little like, and I thought, that's my alarm. And I ran down to the swim, and my middle rod was just bent down, just going, dee, 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 dee. And hooked onto it. And I was playing. I knew it was a big one. It was thumping around, and then it come up on the surface about 30 yards out, and there was a swan that come along. I think it was quite inquisitive, and it was like the line. It was meeting the line and the fish, and I was like, this is not going to happen to me. So I literally had to dunk the rod like a few foot under the water and just wait for the swan to get out of the way. And then, I lifted it up and carried on battling it, and I got it in, and it was Stella at 46.12. To be fair, weight was irrelevant, because it was just one I wanted. It was one I wanted. But like I say, I've done very, very well on that lake. But it didn't start off easy. It was moody. It was moody for me. It was moody. Yeah. Like, I think I lost my first two captures to hook poles, and then I remember I was sitting in a swim in the M pads, and I was on the phone to someone, and the fish were just showing and sheeting up on my spot, and I was like, this is going to happen. I was saying to him on the phone, I'm going to get a bite in about 20 minutes. I'm going to get a bite. This is it, my first man of carp. And I saw a load of ducks coming in from the distance, coming to me, and they were flying, and I thought, oh, they've missed the spot. Thank God for that. They're not landed. And they sort of flew up behind my head. And, like planes and ducks do to reduce altitude, they just went in the field and sort of span round and come down at a lower altitude and come on. And they hit the water right over where my spot was. And it just erupted with carp. And I just put my head in my hands and went, well, that's my chance gone. Yeah. And I was just broken.
Oh,
yeah.
Typical.
But yeah, it's a funny old lake, mate. And like I say, like anything went on there, anything went. Baiting up was just you would just have. I've sat in a swim before on a bucket waiting to go in there. Someone will come along and thump 10 key of boilie out in front of you, and they're not even fishing. Yeah, oh yeah, it was like bandit country down there.
Right.
Yeah, I woke up. I remember I was fishing in a swim once, the 18 again, and I liked it in there. And I was fishing in there, and I got woken up, and I looked at my watch, and it said 3 a.m, and all I could hear was bait going in, and I sort of come round, and I walked round to the corner, and there's a swim called the Pump, and one of my mates who was fishing the Carper heard it as well, and he walked round, and there was a fella just baiting spoon and buckets of boilie, just like troughing them in. I went, mate, what are you doing? And he went, well, I'm just baiting up for when I come fishing next week. I went, I'm fishing now. He went, oh, sorry, I didn't know. I went, you didn't even look. Like, you can see, I'm there.
Yeah.
And that was that. Yeah. So he was like, no, he was apologetic when that these things happen. Yeah, it is what it is. The irony is I caught a fish called Hank on that same spot in that morning at just over 40 pounds
Right.
on that rod. So that was perfect.
Yeah.
But it's weird because that lake, I was speaking to my mate Dave Farmer, who still fishes it, and because he was like, it's just such a mad old lake. Like, you would either catch on 10 baits or catch on 10 kilo. Yeah. Anything in between was dangerous territory of blanking. So bizarre. In the end, I used to just fish around 10, 12 baits. That was it.
Yeah.
Or I'd put like 12 key of boilie in and jump on it a couple of days later, 3 days later or whatever, when I nick back, and then you'd catch. Yeah, random. Sorry, mate. Go on.
No, it's mad. Some good stories.
Yeah, it's just, you just see it all fishing these lakes,
So it was like a team effort, wasn't it? You and Freddie catching Stella.
Mate, he helped me right out. Do you know what? I would have eventually got to it in another sort of 30 seconds, but you never know. It might have found some reeds or something after. You never know. Know. It was going off at the rate of knots, and it was only another 30 yards from some reeds. So who knows? I do thank Fred for that. He definitely helped me with that fish.
That's it, carp.
Yeah, brilliant.
So obviously after the Essex Manor, mate, what did you say? You did 2 seasons on there, did you? 2 years?
I did. I had 3 seasons. I think I did 2.5 seasons. I fished down, like I did the winter. That winter, when the manor come into winter, me and my mate Eddie, we did a lot of time on a lake called Cottington. Cottington in Dill. It's a funny old place. It's a day ticket lake, but it was good for a winter bite, and it's got some big fish, big scaly ones in there. So me and my mate Eddie concentrated on in there in the winter. We done really, really well. We had so many fish, and I just wanted one of them scaly 40s out of there, and I got one in the end. But yeah, it's a funny old place. It's not what you'd expect. It looks like one of these dug holes in the ground with a few little fake islands. It's not. I can't say it's the nicest place that I've ever fished, but it was good for a winter bite, and we did really well on there.
Oh yeah. I've just seen the pictures there, mate. I'm looking at the pictures as we speak, mate.
Yeah. A big plated scaly one.
Yeah.
That was like just over 40 pound. Yeah, it's funny, but yeah, I was down there once and it was pissing down. Like, when I say torrential rain, I was over one side of the lake, and it was coming down so hard, and I heard some fish show on the other side of the lake. I knew I had a change of clothes in my barrow, like in a bin bag, and I just thought, you know what, let's just do it. You're not going to have any luck where you are. I had another 24 hours ahead of me. I thought, that's it. So I packed down the bivvy and the rods and everything in torrential rain, and I barrowed round to the other side, and I set up. I set up, and I was to the core, soaked to the core. and did the rods, got in the bivvy, got changed, and yeah, within an hour and a half, I had 230s on the bank, and there was a fella next to me, and he come over to me, and he said to me, that's probably the best bit of angling I've seen in years and years and years, and his name was Barry O'Connor, which is Barry and Ben O'Connor. I got to know them quite well in the end, friends with them. They were like BCAC winners years ago.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it was nice. It was nice to be complimented by someone like, he was a good angler, Barry.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Cottingdon. We had some good fun on there, me and Eddie. Just fished there throughout the winter, really.
Yeah, you got rewarded for your move, didn't you?
Yeah.
Paid off. Like you say, sometimes you have to do it, don't you? Sometimes you just got to go with it. If the fish aren't in front of you, you're not catching them, are you?
No, exactly that. You've got to make the move. I think, watercraft, I think when you start out, you don't really know, because sometimes the signs can be subtle, like just a couple of bubblers or just like a little, peck breaking the water or something like that, like a dorsal or something. And as you progress in your angling, you just see the signs more and more frequent, and you're not in the bivvy so much stuck behind an iPad watching a film. You're actively hunting.
Yeah.
So I think, and you're listening for the noises. You're listening for coots getting spooked. You're constantly, yeah. And then after Cottingdon, I went and fished a lake called Kingsmead Island, which is RK Leisure owned water.
Nice.
Which is all boat work. It's all boat work. So me and my mate Eddie went up there together. I think maybe like sort of early April or something. We started fishing on there. It's a big old pit. It's like 60 acres, quite a deep pit. It started off slow. We had a few sessions, a couple of blank sessions. Then I had a 30, and Eddie, he had one of the special ones, my mate Eddie. It was a fish called the Big Levery. It was just over 40 pounds, but it's absolute like a true British lever, Not many of them around, to be honest. And yeah, basically he loves me forever for this, because literally he was in one swim over the other side of the lake. I was in another. Proper bite time, 6 a.m. I had fish all over me. He had to go, but he needed a photo. So I reeled in with fish all over me to go and do him a photo, and then packed up and went home. But it was worth seeing it, a fish like that, like on the bank in front of you. So, it's a pleasure to see.
Yeah, like
so
special moment, isn't it? Like a special moment, that in it together, isn't it?
Yeah, sharing fish with your mates is good. I never ever got jealous of people catching fish, because everyone has their 15 minutes, and if you work hard, the results will come your way anyway.
Yeah, like I say, mate, it's that's what it's all about. Sharing moments with your mates and stuff, and like you mentioned, working hard and the results will come. So it's a great moment shared together with you and Eddie with that one on the bank, wasn't it?
Definitely, mate. Definitely. Beautiful fish. When you see fish like that, you can't help but keep being pushed internally to drive to catching decent fish, because they're just immaculate creatures. Bit special. Yeah.
Yeah, mega moment. Mega moment. Like you say, shared together, man. So you mentioned obviously the islands, and so where were you going next? Did you do your journeys with Eddie much?
Yeah. I fished with Eddie a lot. Basically, we had a gold card, which was like the whole of the Halton complex, and the Island Lake was a silver card. So it's like, I'm not saying it's a lesser lake, because it's stunning in its own right. I mean, all the RK Leisure lakes are wicked, and the stock are awesome. They breed all their own fish on site, and they're all scaly, like Sutton strains, and they're just immaculate. But it seemed like it was almost like we was doing ourselves an injustice staying on the Island Lake when we had a gold card, and we could fish like K1 next door or Halton, So we moved across to K1 and we fished on there for just carried on fishing on there on and off throughout the season, picking a few nice fish off. I had some good hits. I remember I think I had 8 fish in one 2-night session in a swim called the Bream, I think it was. So all the fish sort of congregate down that end. Very, very weedy lake as well. Like you've got to be fishing them like clear, tight spots. Like literally, you'll be casting and you'll go drop. No, it's soft. Casting, no, drop soft. And then you're aiming another 6 inches right in like on the bank. And then you like boom. You might take 10 goes to find a drop. And then once you've got that drop, you know you're going to get a bite. Eddie didn't really like the K1 for some reason. He didn't quite gel with it. I continued fishing there. Fishing there in the winter. I had a really nice fish. It was just typical. I think it was on a trip over my birthday, like in January. It was like Baltic. I think it was January. And I had this fish at range. I had it like 120 yards or something. And got it back. I looked in. I thought, it's one of these scaly Sutton ones, beautiful. And I weighed it. It was like, I think it was like 35 or 36 pound. And I was like, oh my God, where is my tripod? I'd left my tripod at home for the self takes. Right. I was like, no. So now I'm balancing a camera on a bucket and everything. I should have sent you the photo just for the laugh factor. Literally cutting my head off and all sorts. So I think I've got a picture with half my forehead missing in the dark with this beautiful scaly fish. And in the end, I just like, that'll do. And I put it back. And then Ollie Davies messaged me. He was like, you had one then, Matt? And I was like, yeah. I just had a beautiful fish. I think I sent him the picture. He went, that's Jake Sutton. That's such a nice fish. That fish made the front cover of Carp Talk and all that. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, it ain't making the front cover of Carp Talk now. It was like the worst photograph I've ever took. It was just like, I did this fish no justice whatsoever. But I've got the memory. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
You got the memory, man. You've got a story to tell now as well, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly that, mate. Exactly that. Yeah.
But sorry, Matt. Obviously, I know you mentioned weedy waters. I just wanted to pick your brain a second, mate. How do you find fishing weedy waters? Because a lot of people have like sort of, turn away from them. And do you approach them? How do you approach them?
I find? Well, look, carp at the end of the day, they love weed. They love weed. It's where the naturals are. It holds the warmth and stuff. Like even in the winter, it's definitely. I swear, it's definitely warmer around the weed. I've noticed weedy lakes where it'll just literally, they're like magnets to the weed beds. I love fishing weed. I love fishing clear spots near to weed. I mean, a lot of the time where the weed hits the surface, it might show you where a clear area is because there might be a little round area where there's no weed within the weed. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you can explore them just leading about with no rig, just a lead and braid, just leading about for that drop. The feeling for the drop is just paramount in fishing. Sorry, mate, what was you going to say? You wanted to pick me brains about weed?
Yeah, that was it, mate. That was it, really. I just wanted to get you just about how you approach it and stuff, mate. Because obviously, I've only a couple of weedy waters.
There's certain things I wouldn't do fishing in weed. I've never ever put fish at danger. Like I was like the next lake I fished after K1 was probably Barden, which is down in Tunbridge, and that was fairly weedy in certain areas, of the lake, like chock-a-block. And I used to see some of the anglers like surface fishing for them in the weed, but they were losing like 90% of their takes, and that to me was just bad angling. And I can't believe the club allowed it. They lost a lot of fish in the end, that lake, which is unfortunate for any lake. But I think they got KHV or something down there, and it's a really nice lake, and it was stacked stacked full of good ones. You know, it was hard to get a ticket on there, and it was a club lake.
Right.
Um, um, you know, well, it wasn't hard to get a ticket. It was hard to get a night ticket. So it's one of them lakes where you can day ticket and pay your money on the bank, like 25 quid or 20 quid or whatever, and then you could have a ticket like where you could just fish the days only, or you had one of these special night tickets, and I think there was like 100 night tickets. That was the hard thing, getting one of them.
Right.
Yeah, but I really, really enjoyed my time on there. I didn't fish much on there. I didn't even do a season, I don't think. And I had some nice fish. I had one that I really, really liked called No Name, which is unfortunately it's dead now. It died I think it was about a year after I caught it. But that was, think I think I had it at about 47 something. I'd have to look back over Facebook. I can't because I put the weights next to them. I've been blessed with big fish. You know what I mean? It's not me gloating. It's just I've had quite a lot of big fish over the years. I think I'm probably on, I think last count was like 25 UK 40s.
Oh, incredible, mate.
Which two of them are 50s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Barden. Really, really enjoyed it. The anglers were quite nice down there. The bailiffs got friendly with. Really, really enjoyed Barden, and it wasn't a particularly difficult lake either. I think it was about somewhere around, if I had to guess, I'd probably say around 20, 22 acres, give or take. Broken up by a couple of islands and a couple of bays. Really, really nice lake. Not a massive head of fish, maybe 130 fish, but it seemed to be that they very mobile, very, very mobile, the fish on there. Literally, you'd see them down one end of the lake and you'd spot like certain fish. There was like a fish called the Classic, and it was quite pale in colour considering some of the other fish were darker, and it was a great big unit. It was over 50 pounds, and you'd see it down one end of the lake, and an hour later you'd see it like up the other end of the 20-acre lake. Like they would move around a lot. Yeah, and they loved the bait on there. They were greedy pigs.
Really?
So literally, yeah. If you, yeah.
Just get it in.
Yeah. So that was there. Where did I go after Barden? I went to the Tip Lake. Have you heard of the Tip Lake?
No, I haven't, mate. No.
No, it's a syndicate. It's a syndicate in Dartford Way. It's an old lake that was really sort of famous back in the 70s and 80s. I think like Terry, when he wrote his book, Urban Myth, I think he mentions quite a lot about the Tip Lake when he first fished it down there.
Right.
When he first started smashing it on the fish mills and that. It's he says it's a pretty little lake. It's not big. Probably only about 4 or 5 acres, I think. But there's a lot of dark fish, like them pictures I sent you. You know, them dark ones, like the brown and the there's quite a few. To be honest with you, mate, this was a weird part of my angling journey. This was the Tip Lake. Like it was. How do I put it? It was a bit toxic down there. It was a bit of a toxic lake. The fishing for me started off pretty slow actually on there. There was people catching. I was fishing on there with Eddie as well, and a few of my other pals like Mick Crassos, who I met on the Manor as well. He was fishing down there. Dave Farmer was down there, and Dave Farmer's on Halo now as well. It started slow for me. Like there was people catching, and I weren't getting into them, and I was trying everything in the end. And then sometimes it's that first fish, isn't it? When you fish a new syndicate, just getting that first fish, getting off the mark, and then it starts trickling like a tap. Yeah, well, I think I was about probably 6 weeks in, and I still hadn't had a fish, and I was pulling my hair out. But I knew that eventually I'd get into them, and everyone was fine down there. But then I started catching. Then I started really taking it apart, and it weren't going unnoticed. And the other members and the bailiffs, they considered it a bit like their lake, a little bit, the bailiffs. And when you start catching and they're not, then the animosity starts. Do you know what I mean? There was a few people that chucked their tickets in halfway through the season and went, look, sod this, I'm off. I'm not fishing down here. Yes, they used to do some funny things, like they'd close the syndicate for like a bailiff's party or birthday or something and call it a work party. But no one would be working; they'd just be on the piss. And like you got people that you'd see it on the WhatsApp group. Oh, the lake's closed this Saturday for 2 nights or whatever. We got a work party, and it'd be like a bloke could go, oh, it's my first week end off in 3 weeks, and I'm coming up from Canterbury. I was going to do the night. It was all like that, you know. Yeah, it was a weird one. And where I was catching lots of fish, like I think in the end I was on about 20 fish, and it just got so bad I pulled off for 3 months. I didn't fish it. It just done my head in. I was like, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to this weird. Like, you want to go fishing to relax and enjoy it and have fun and all that, and we just weren't getting that vibe. It was a tough place to fish. I'm not going to lie. I don't want to ruffle anyone's feathers, but I'm only speaking the truth and what other anglers that were on at the time with me. You know, it's like, for instance, it's a 48-hour rule, which I get completely. You don't ever want people like taking the mickey and that. So I'd get there at first light, you know, which is always a good time to look for carp, isn't it? First light. And literally, I don't know, maybe it was 6 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning or whatever. And I'd done me 24 hours, and then it was like, well, I knew I had to be off that following morning, not a problem. But like one of the fellas who run it, he actually told the bailiff that was fishing down there opposite me, you need to get Matt off the lake in the morning because he's due off in the morning. I need you to set your alarm. And I'm thinking, really? And yeah, I was up, I was awake. I heard an alarm go off over the opposite side of the lake. It was like, I think it was like 5:30 or something. And I'd already got all my bits together in my bivvy anyway. I knew I was due off. And I could just hear the footsteps coming round. He was like, Matt, you got to pack up and go. I went, I know, mate. I know I'm due off. Look, he went, I'm really sorry. I don't want to be doing this to you. I went, it's fine, mate. I was going. I just want the light to come up properly so I can properly pack down. I said, I'll be gone in less than an hour. And he was like, okay, mate. Yeah, thanks. So it was all of that caper going on. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, which, don't get me wrong, rules are rules, and I make them right. But come on, what's an hour? No one was trying to get in my swim. There was only about 3 other anglers on the whole lake. It was like, I just found it a bit petty. Things like that. It was just where I was getting the results, they were picking on me a little bit, and then they weren't going to renew my ticket. But I'm a friendly guy. I get on with anyone, and they wouldn't give me a reason for not renewing my ticket. They just said, look, we're not going to renew your ticket. And I went, that's fine. I've got other places to fish anyway. And I went, but just out of interest, can you at least give me a reason why you won't? And they wouldn't give me one. And then in the end, one of the fellas that runs it and said, no, look, we've had a chat between ourselves. You've not done anything wrong. So the ticket is there if you want it. And I went, no, honestly, I said, no, it's fine. I'm going to go and fish on Welly, where I had a Welly ticket come. Yeah. So yeah, that was the end of that. It wasn't great, but lovely fish though. I had some lovely fish. Look at that like the brown and the yellow fish and the big fully out of there. The fish are stunning on there. And then I left there and went to Wellington Country Park, which is a complete polar opposite in respect of the tip, in the sense of anglers, members, blah blah blah. I've never fished a lake that is so full of gentlemen in my whole life. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's only 50 members on there, but literally everyone was so friendly. I've never seen anything like it. No one could be more helpful. Unbelievable lake. Unbelievable lake.
No, it's nice, that, and that's what you want when you come to a lake, don't it?
Yeah, I think
No,
it's probably to do with the money as well.
yeah.
Very expensive ticket, like stupid expensive ticket. I think it was 2,175 quid. That's just
Oh,
got to be one of the most expensive syndicates in the country, isn't it?
that's very expensive, yeah.
Very expensive.
Mm.
Yeah,
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 you certainly got your reward for the money though, mate. Like, oh, looking at the fish there, wow.
yeah. It was funny because I think it was my second trip down. I think it was my second trip. Wouldn't have been no more than my third trip down. I hadn't had anything. There was people catching anything, and I went into a swim called Hole in the Bush, and it was quite a rangy swim. And I was fishing at about 130 yards to an island in about. It's a very shallow lake, Welly. Literally, a lot of the lake is like 4 foot, 5 foot, and literally like you're trying to feel for a drop at 130 yards. Any slight wind and curve on that line, you just Anyway, I ended up having the big common 55.8, which is my PB. That was unbelievable, mate. When my old knees were knocking when I'm sitting. It was quite clear the water, and I'm in my chesties, and I see this big common flank, and obviously I didn't know what I was attached to. I just saw it and thought, oh, that looks big. That looks like that's a 40 or something. And then when it went over that cord, I just looked and thought, well, that's the biggest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And there was Simon Kenny was next door to me. I fished with him on the Essex Manor, actually. Good angler he is. And I said, Si, come and have a look at this. And he peered in that net. He went, well, that's the biggest common I've ever seen. I was like, it's got to be the big one, isn't it? He went, yeah. And we did the photos, and I had an epic water shot with it, with the lodge in the background and all that. So yeah, that was wicked. That fish. That sort of like, it was weird because with Welly, I didn't have many fish in my first season on there. I was used to, when I fish on lakes, generally as a rule of thumb, I sort of catch a lot of fish, but some of the ones I'm after evade me for a long time, and I have to really just wait time and graft and what have you. But it was weird because like on Welly, I had that big common. The next fish I had was like probably one of the oldest fish in the lake, which is called the linear. And I had that at 45 pound, and it was a night shot. I think I sent it to you.
Yeah.
So that was my second fish, and then the next fish after that, it was a fish called the Pretty Sutton, which is considered considered the prettiest fish in the lake. So I'd had the biggest common, the oldest linear, and the prettiest fish in the lake in the first season, and I had another couple of free fish, but numbers wise, it wasn't a success numbers wise, but I didn't care, mate. I'd had a great year on there. I didn't care. Yeah.
Them three fish, mate, just like you say, insane, aren't they? Like, to have them three sealed up there the season, when did you see them?
Oh yeah. It was an unbelievable result for me. And it's a long way for me to drive as well. I think it's about 150-mile round trip,
Right.
for Welly from my house. So it's a big effort. It's a big effort. And I don't have loads of time at my disposal. You know, I've got a young family and I've got businesses. So it's not like I can go fishing 3 nights every week. I can't do it.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of effort. But do you know what? Some real gentlemen on that lake. Some real nice men. You know, like Jamie, who runs the syndicates, top bloke. Ali, Dave, Dean Fletcher. Well, Dean still got the British record for that parrot from the Ways, and he still holds the record, I believe. 68 something, 68 something pound.
Wow.
Lovely bloke. So it's just a real gentleman club that I was really had the privilege of fishing on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did 3 seasons on there in the end.
Right.
Yeah, and I still had my Barden ticket. I didn't let that go because it was a cheap ticket, you see. I think it was like 200 or 300 quid. It was, I can't remember. It was a cheaper, it was one of them club tickets that you just don't let go because it's 25 minutes from my house. Still had loads of chunks in, and it was always worth having.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I went to Welly a few years back. Yeah, I just drove to Welly, literally 75 miles. I think it took me about 2 hours with a bit of traffic. I've turned up. I've barrowed my stuff down to the lake, and then it's very safe around there. You can just park your stuff up and go, walking around it. I think it's 35 acres. So it's quite a big old piece of water. And it's like a park, Wellington Country Park. So it's like a lot for kids and stuff going on, like big sort of climbing frames and like there's a petting zoo there with the farm animals, and like it's one of these sort of attraction places that people go to. It's got like all the big plastic dinosaurs and all that make noises and stuff. And then like it's very busy during the day with kids. Kids will all of a sudden you'll turn around and the 2 kids will be having a sword fight with your distance sticks and all that. It's one of them. But then it's like at 5:30 at night, boom, dead silent.
Yeah.
The park's closed, and then you can do your fishing. But I drove there once, and it was closed. I got there and looked at the lake, and I could see the fish spawning. I was like, oh no, and I've got all my gear in the van. I've got all my food for a 2-night session. And I'm like, oh no, where do I go now? So I jumped in the van and drove. I think it must have been about 80 miles, and I decided to go to Barden again.
Right.
Because I thought, what's the point of going home? I've got everything here. I might as well go find another lake. So I drove all the way to Barden. I left my gear in my van, and literally I walked to the lake, and the wind was hacking into a bay, like really blowing a hoolie in there. And I thought, they've got to be here. The fish have got to be here. And I just stood and watched the water for about 10 minutes, and then bop, a head come up. And I thought, that is enough for me. And literally I've turned round to go back, and then I heard one, and I turned around and I saw like the break of the water, and I thought that sounded like a good one. So I literally run back to the van, got my barrow, barrowed it down, barrowed it to where I saw them, just stood there, and I watched this almighty lump just come out of the water, and I thought, that's the big one. That is the big one for sure. It was a fish called the brown. I thought, I know it is, because there ain't a fish in here that big.
Yeah.
And it was a clean looking mirror, and literally, all I did is I tied a fresh bait on, just cast it straight down. It probably landed no more than half a rod length from where I see it show. And I thought that was it. Put it on the rod. I got another rod out, flicked that down there, another one, flicked that out in front of me. And I sort of covered the area, and I got a few handfuls of bait. I could probably have chucked no more than 25 baits over each rod. It was just with a throwing stick. It was the most simplest form of fishing. It was unbelievable. And 25 minutes later, that rod bent round, and I was in full battle mode with this fish. I was in the water, didn't even have time to put my chesties on. It was still warm because it was like spawning time. Not that they were spawning on Barden. And literally, I'm now up to my waist in water, and I can feel it pinging off weed and all sorts. It must have took me a good 15 minutes to get this fish in, because I thought, this is like lunging, like deep plods. I thought it's a good one. It is definitely a good one. And got it up on the surface, netted it. I was knackered. The fish was knackered. I peered in the net, And this thing, honestly, it was so wide across the back. I was like, I don't know where I'm going to put my saddle here. It was such a big fish. And I thought, this is definitely the brown. And I knew it had a little scale on it. And I sort of twisted it in the net, looked, and it was. And I was like, yes. Went and got the fella who was fishing a swim probably 50 yards down. Told him that I had the brown. He said like he'd come up and do the photos for me. And then literally before he'd even come up to do the photos, my middle rod was away. And then I had another fish, and it was one I wanted called the sub that Eddie had a couple of years before it. And I saw it when Eddie had it, and I was like, I'd love to have that fish. And the water seemed a bit murkier this time of year when I was there. So it wasn't as dark as when Eddie had it, but it didn't matter. It was a stunning fish. Yeah. So I had one that I wanted, and the top 18 fish at 50. What was it? 52 pound two.
Wow.
Yeah, and all because of Welly was closed for spawning, or Welly was spawning. To like, if that's not written in the cards, what is?
I've just about to say that, mate. It was meant to be, wasn't it? It was meant to be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely, 100%. Yeah, and so that was that. What did I do then? I carried on fishing on Welly. Done really well on Welly in the spring. Basically, there was Wellington Country Park. So you got the main body of water, like 30 odd acres, 32 acres or something, and then you've got a channel that runs through, and there's a bridge over it, and then it goes into a little lake that's probably like 3 or 4 acres, and it's this little pokey swim, tiny little pokey swim, and it's really only a 2-rod affair, and you're fishing. Oh, wow, it probably 2 rod lengths out, 3 rod lengths out max, and they have to pass you going from the big lake to the little lake. So it's like an ambush point.
Yeah.
And so I fished there in the spring. It's so not one of the popular swims. It's not popular at all. But I used to trickle a little bit of bait in there and all. Not that you're allowed to pre-bait, but do apologise, Jamie. I used to put a little bit of bait in here when I left. But yeah, and do you know what? I think that swim did me about 12 bites before April, and I had a fish called sea scow out of there, which was 40. I can't even remember. It's a 40, and I had another 40, which was one of the ghosties. Just some other cracking fish. So that was brilliant. And then I got people started cottoning on that I was having a few. No one ever fished that swim. Then all of a sudden people were flopping in there fishing, but that is what it is. I think fishing etiquette, it's not really around anymore, is it, mate?
No.
But it is in my book, but it's not really around. Yeah, fish at all costs and all the rest of it. Yeah,
that's the only problem, mate. And it's funny you should mention that. Like I say, I fished a swim through just getting through COVID. It was, so I was still off work, so I had the time for a change.
Yeah,
and I just thought to myself, I'm going to fish the furthest peg. Never see anyone fishing it ever.
Yeah,
furthest peg, and I'll just plonk myself there, and that was it, mate. I had the best 3 months of fishing that I've ever had.
Wicked.
And like you just mentioned there, though, mate, as soon as people start spotting it, before I know it, that end of the lake was always the first. It was always, people were always there, and I was thinking, no one's ever fished it. Every time I've been down there from a kid.
Yeah, there you go. It's typical, isn't it? I suppose that's the bad side of social media as well, isn't it? Like when you posting fish for companies that you're working with, or you're just posting them because you want to show people the fish you've caught or whatever. Of course, that's that they can then look at the pictures and go, I know where that is. I know that swim, blah, 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 blah. And then all your hard work's undone on it. But it happens. It is what it is. Syndicates are there for everyone to fish any swim that they want. So I can't. No, exactly that, mate.
Of course, mate. That's it, innit? So, obviously, Matt, you've been on so many trips and so many So what's been like, if anything pops into your mind, what's been your biggest highlight of your fishing?
Um, um, highlight. Obviously, you're always going to remember catching the big fish that you want, the
Yeah,
target fish. You know, Stella was a big target fish for me. Uh, that big common was a big target fish for me. I mean, just, I don't know. Sometimes it's the simple things, isn't it? Sometimes it's just catching, like, just, it's weird. It's just like, just learning as well. I just love the learning. Like, I've fished loads of lakes in between, like these lakes we've mentioned, like Sundridge Lakes, um, lakes like Brooklands, in the Medway Valley, fished lakes like that. I even done a little bit on Englefield Lagoon down in Reading. That was a hard lake. That was a hard lake. I didn't do much, um, irrespective of the fact it was a bloody long way, like a seriously long way from my house, further than Welly. But you're talking a lake of around 65 acres, was it? Something around 65 acres. It had 30 fish in it, Steve.
yeah,
30 fish in it. And it was floor to ceiling with weed. It was a grawler. I did my first session on there. Literally, I saw one fish. That was it. My next trip down, I explored the area that I saw a fish, and I managed a common that was, I think it was about £22 or something. And then I was starting to build a picture up and because I saw fish again in another area, but kind of like tied in with where I'd seen before. So then I've actively fished another area into that zone, and I hooked a real good one and just lost it in the weed. That was on my following trip. So considering like I did like 4 trips, I think, and I had one and lost one, that was very good for down there. But it was so busy
yeah,
as well because it had that really nice mirror, that baby black, which was a sought after fish. Um, you had a lot of full timers on there, and to be honest, even though it's a big lake, 6 or 7 anglers on there would really sew it up,
yeah,
like with the angles of the fishing and the amount of water per swim and stuff. And they'd banned braid the year before, which on a lake like that, personally, I think braid will land you more fish, which will result in less fish tethered, less trailing lines and things. But obviously that's the club's decision. But yeah, and then the baby black, I heard stories that the baby black had died, so which turned out to be true. So that was it. I didn't fish on there again.
right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that was that
But
one.
like I say, it's just the learning. I love the learning. I love like going to a new lake and cracking it. And I just feel like every lake has got its own almost key to unlocking it, almost in a
Yeah,
broad sense. In a broad sense, like even a baiting style or a fishing swim area style, or just there's so much pieces to that jigsaw, and I just love that. I don't like knowing too much about a lake. I like to know what's in there, but I want to just learn it and do it myself.
yeah,
You get so much pleasure out of that. Does that make sense?
yeah. It does,
I
mate.
just
It
get
does.
so much pleasure. Like it's exciting, and
Yeah,
that thrill of fishing a new lake. I couldn't be one of these fellas that get a ticket and stay on there for 9 years. And I had that fish at £20, £30, £40, £45. I couldn't be one of them.
mm,
There's too many lakes. There's too much enjoyment. That's
yeah,
why I've probably missed out on some serious fish that I've targeted over the years because I want to fish other lakes. I
yeah,
want to experience other waters. Yeah,
yeah, Matt. So obviously, you've mentioned there you like fishing new lakes, unlocking the puzzle, and just sussing them out and
yeah.
that. So have you ever returned to a lake like to settle a score, or maybe maybe you keep searching for them big uns.
Funny enough, I was at a loss of where to fish. Literally last winter, just gone. No, not the winter just gone. The one before that. Sorry. Basically, I thought, right, where can I fish this winter? Where can I fish? It's got a bit of winter form. So basically, I messaged Steve, who runs the Essex Manor, and I thought it's local. It's 25 minutes away on a good run, like give or take, depending how the M25 wants to behave. We all know that can be the biggest car park in the world when it wants to be, but it is a clear run. And I thought the ticket starts in October. So you get October and November, which is extremely good months. And it ends sometime in April. I can't remember exactly because the dates changed because of, the COVID messed all the dates up, didn't it, with fisheries. So I thought, like, you've got October, November and March and a little bit of April. So you've got some really seriously good months. So I got a winter ticket on there and literally slotted straight back into where I left off. I couldn't believe my luck. I turned up there, walked around the lake, found some fish. They're very easy to find, the fish on there, because they just show like SeaWorld dolphin show. It's a joke. And they're big fish. They shoal up. So when you see sheeting up, it's not like a couple of bubbles. It is like a moving jacuzzi. I found some fish, just underarm, some like a hook bait on it. Within an hour, it was away, and it was a fish called the tiger lin. I just couldn't believe it, and it was, I can't even remember the weight of it. It was over 40 pound. It was like maybe 42, 43 pound. I was like, oh my days, I've been back here an hour from being from years ago, and I've just slotted straight in and nicked a 40. Like, what? How is your luck? And I think I had another one that trip as well. And I just went back like every weekend, picking them off. I had another fish called the big lin out of there, which was one of the nicest fish in the lake back years ago. I had it. Funny enough, it was the last capture I ever had from that lake all them years ago when I fished it, and I had that at 42 pound. And I remember we had all the headlights on the car on it. It was pitch black just to give us more light. We didn't have any of these LED lights that we all use now, that putting on bank sticks like. We had headlights. Yeah. And that was that fish. And then I had that again. It's down in weight. It's getting old now. I had that at 30 something pound. Still a cracking old school fish. I think I sent you a picture of that big lin actually when I originally caught it. I know I did. It was a nighttime shot. So I carried on fishing there, and I absolutely loved it. And funny enough, there is a funny story with the Essex Manor. I went down there. I knew that it was coming to an end, the ticket, because it was like the beginning of April, something around that time. And I turned up at the gate one morning, and there was a fellow that was just driving in front of me, and I said, "Look, leave it, mate. I'll lock the gate up." So I just padlocked the gate up. Same with the net shed. You have to collect a net and your sling and your mat. Collected all that, dumped it on top of the van, drove off, went for a walk, walking round, found some fish in the middle pads. There's a tiny little miniature bay, and there was a couple of bubblers in there. So I cast a rod down to it, set my bivvy up. It was like one of these storms, like these silly name storm, like Storm Edna and all that crap.
Yeah.
It was one of them. It was horrendous. I think it was 50, 60, 70 mile an hour gusts. And I had the Tempest stuck in. It was only a little lightweight bivvy. And I'm sitting there, there's rain coming in, I'm little pillbox style, and I'm thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing here in this weather? Do you know what I mean? I could be at home with a fire on or a bit of football on or something. What am I doing here? And all of a sudden, woof, the bivvy went. It was gone. And I'm just sitting on my bed chair now with rain and wind coming in at me. I've turned round and the bivvy's in a tree, about 20 yards behind me, and I had to go up. I'm not the tallest of fellas anyway. I'm jumping up, trying to get it. I've got it down. It's all got rips in it. I'm like, sod my luck. And I've pegged it back down again in horrendous wind. I've even got the distance sticks at angles, like everything, all the spare bank sticks you could find. Pegged down at angles and just holding this bivvy down. I thought, how am I going to even get through the night on this? And then all of a sudden, like, I only had 2 rods in the water. It was that bad. I remember I was like, I'm not going to put a 3rd rod out. I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered to get wet. This is just going to be a write-off this session. And then all of a sudden I looked and I heard a single bleep, and the whole rod tip was bent round, full battle mode. And I was like, wow. And I've just run down there, because they're all like steps that you run down there, and bang, I'm into this fish. And I thought, oh, this feels really nice. And he's plodding around in front of me. My mate Dave Farmer was fishing opposite me in a swim called the Garden. He's come round. And anyway, he's seen it flank. He went, do you know what fish this is? Because he saw it. I went, no, but I've got a good idea. Anyway, it went in the net, and he really wanted this fish, bless him. And I peered in the net. It was Stella again. Obviously, I had it years and years ago, and it was Stella again. Do you know what? I think it was about 43, 44 pound. And I was like, wow, wicked. And I said to him, the first thing I said was, it's bloody busy down here, Dave. He went, well, it's going to be, isn't it? It's the opening week of the season. I went, you what? He went, it's the opening week of the season. I went, you're joking me. He went, well, didn't you know? I went, no. I said, what you're saying is my ticket ran out a week ago. And he was like, well, if you haven't renewed, yeah. I was like, oh, fuck. Oh, no. So I've got Stella in the net, and I'm not allowed to fish the lake. I was like, oh, no. So I phoned the bailiff up. I went, Mick. I went, like, head bailiff. I went, Mick, when's the ticket run out on the manor? He went, oh, it ran out last week, Matt. I went, oh, right, okay, no worries, mate. He went, why is that? I went, no, nothing, mate. I said, look, I've got to go. I'll speak to you later. He went, no worries. And I was like, oh, my God. So literally, I'd done the photos, slipped it straight back, packed up immediately, because I thought, I'm not having this. I just packed up immediately, got someone to let me out, because I didn't know the gate codes. They changed the gate codes. But luckily, where I was following someone in, so they changed the gate code. And as I was driving back, I phoned Mick, and I said, Mick, I've got a confession to make. He went, what's that? What you done? I went, well, I went down the manor and I was fishing, and I didn't realise the ticket had run out, because they don't give you any paperwork, you see. He went, oh, you plonker. All right, look, don't worry. Look, just, you've not done anything out like untoward. No one, you didn't know, blah, blah, blah. He went, he's not to worry. And I went, yeah, there's something else, Mick. He went, what now? What? I went, well, I had Stella. He went, you what? I went, I kind of had Stella, like, in a couple of hours. He went, no. Because basically that's one of the most sought after fish in the lake. He went, so what you're telling me is you've poached Stella at the manor when you haven't got a ticket? I went, yeah. He went, oh, you nightmare. So my mate Dave, he messaged me, he was laughing. He was like, you've single-handedly broken the hearts of 40 other members on the lake by poaching her out of the... anyway, yeah. So, yeah, that was my return visit to the manor. I don't know whether I'll ever be invited back to that lake, but there was no malice in it. So if Steve's listening to this now, I do thoroughly apologise, and there was, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't know. Yeah. So that was that.
Epic story. Yeah. So Matt, like you say, it's been incredible, and I just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast, and sharing a few of your stories and just your highlights. And it's been incredible, mate, just to listen. And for me, it's intriguing just to, hear your side and what you've done. And fair play, mate, like credit where credit's due. I've always said this: if you put in the effort in, you deserve the reward. So fair play, man.
Oh, cheers, mate. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Like I said before at the beginning, it's a lonely it's a lonely thing, carp fishing sometimes, you know, and I don't. Sometimes you don't get the credit for your hard work and the captures. People don't relate to it or don't understand it, and yeah. I just love carp fishing and everything about it, mate. And I've got a lot of lakes to look forward to. I've got a few tickets that I've got at the minute that have just come in, so there'll be a lot more to report, mate, if we do another one at some point, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I like the sound of it. You know, we've touched on a bit of your journey, and the journey's still going, mate. And
Mm,
what's intriguing, mate. You know, and I really hope, like I say, it all goes to plan, and
yeah.
you unlock the puzzle.
Cheers, mate. You can tell I don't talk about carp fishing much to people because it's just gone blur, and I've just blurted everything out. Like literally about an hour and 20 minutes of just non-stop gassing about carp fishing.
Yeah,
But no, I've really enjoyed it, mate.
yeah, it's been
Um,
mega. It's been mega, Matt. So all I can say is thank you for being on the Lonely Carpet podcast. And you know, if you ever want to jump on, let's do part two.
Definitely, mate. I'd look forward to that.
Sound, Matt. Like I say, mate. Thank you again, and I'll uh, I'll be in touch, mate.